Welcome to Kaleidoscope Literacy with your host, me, Stet, or Shield of Apollo. Let's go by Apollo. Anyways, I'm really energetic because this is the third time I recorded this. I did not like the last two, so I'm going to record it again. Hopefully my battery doesn't die. So I'm going to psychoanalyze the book Taximony of Love by Richard Allen, which is about a young boy going from the age of 13 to like 18 years old, Spencer, who has Tourette syndrome, who meets Hope, his new neighbor, best friend, and maybe love. Yeah, it's a friendship to lover kind of story. And it's really sweet and adorable, and it's about growing up with kind of like a disabilities and stuff, and how he kind of uses the maps that he learned from biochemistry as a scientist to like really explore like different aspects of his life and how that kind of helps him like as make a pathway into his childhood to adolescence to adulthood. And it's really sweet and adorable. And I love the fact that they treat Spencer like a normal person, like a normal individual with wants and desires who can like learn how to drive and like have a job and stuff like that. And they talk about how sometimes disability isn't the limitation of what you can do, but the limitation of what society deems you capable of doing, which is so real. Oh my gosh. It affects people a lot of the time. And a lot because of it, sometimes people with like disabilities and stuff like that or mental illness like basically learn to hide it all so that they can be able to keep jobs and stuff like that. Unfortunately, my disabilities aren't something I can hide, and it makes it really hard for me to keep a job. We're not going to talk about that or how that is because I'm talking about the book. Spencer talks about his Tourette's and talks about how he manages it. I also love the fact that at one point he talks about trying to stop the Tourette's and how it hurts. And I've heard this a lot from the people in the Tourette's community, that it physically hurts them to stop. And I'm like, oh, I kind of get that in a way. Because like if I try to like stop my anxiety thoughts, I have several anxiety disorders. Like they just ruin the rest of my life, and they cause me to physically hurt. And so I have to like kind of work through my anxieties, which is amazingly fun, and also ruins kind of the rest of your day. But yeah, Spencer meets Hope, who is his new neighbor, and they become super close friends, and stuff happens and tragedies happens, and that kind of like breaks their friendship apart, which is so sad because like I get Hope is going through a grieving process, but Spencer is kind of like that really close friend who is like really super emotional, supportive, but he's also a teenage boy when it happens, so it kind of don't. I understand. They're both teenagers, so I understand like hormones and stuff like that. But there's a point where Hope basically becomes a train wreck, and I'm like, wait, we already stated and kind of like presented your parents as being super supportive and like understanding. Like I would expect your parents to be like the kind of people who would take you to therapy and stuff. How is no one realizing you're in need of a lot of help? That doesn't matter. Spencer gets a girlfriend who isn't Hope, which is like one of the things that I really like about this book. Spencer lives like a basically normal life. He like gets his first crush. He gets a girlfriend. They date. He's super caring and responsible. He's a really great boyfriend. And they split up because of, differences in how they are as a people and yada yada. And they talk about wrestling, and he wrestles, and he like has teammates, and he becomes a part of a community. But he also still likes Magic the Gathering, which is like amazing and spectacular. And he also defends a brony. Not because like he wants to be a good person or stuff like that, because he recognizes like unique skills that the brony has, that he knows jujitsu, and it's really would fit. It's like wrestling for him, which is like great for him because he had to give up his judo dojo closed down. So having wrestling would be a great thing for him. But he also doesn't change, and he also is kind of like the outsider of the wrestling team. That he asked Spencer, and Spencer's a great friend, and he's super caring and lovable. And the prank Oh, the senior prank. Oh my gosh, that was this horrible, horrible senior prank. And the fact that Spencer literally gets himself in trouble to help them out, help out Hope specifically, because again, he still consider himself friends with Hope, but Hope is like pushing him aside just because she's pushing everyone aside because of the tragedy that happens in the book. But that's a thing. And I like it. I like the fact that even though the main character Spencer has a disability, he gets that whole like teenage love story. We deal with his disability. His disability is a part of his story, but it's not his whole story. And oh my gosh, I'm so happy. Just I am disabled. I'm a disabled person. I have severe disability, and I'm part of the disability community, so I know a lot of people with disabilities. And the amount of times I've read books that are not written with a person with disabilities mindset that ends up like very much like inspiration porn. Like, I don't want to call it that, but it is basically inspiration porn. It's just so hideous. Like, I hate it so much. Like, we're just people. Sometimes we can be inspiring, but it's not because of our disabilities. It's because we do stuff in spite of our disabilities. It's just ridiculous. There's one book that I do with that basically they give this character who has like disabilities like this really great understanding of like how gifted she is. And then they just put tragedies on tragedies on tragedies that make absolutely no sense to make. Like they come out of nowhere and I'm like, what the heck? What the heck? And like some of these disabilities, like I don't understand. But like they made a good understanding of like what OCD is like. And I have a mild case of OCD, like as in I don't need medication, but I can manage it. The way one of the characters describes OCD is like a very clear sign. Like, yep, that's how I feel sometimes. And then they just ruin it. So I love the fact that this book, A Taximony of Love, really gets that person has disability. It's a part of their life, but it isn't a person's personality. Like, again, I love the fact that he groans about the fact that he's on a diet because he's on the wrestling team, and he has to like stay in a weight group, and the fact that his brother like makes fun of the fact that he can't have ice cream. I'm like, yes, treat him like a teenager who's in the wrestling team who also deals with tics. And they deal with those as well. They talk about medication because he needs to get on medication to deal with full-blown tics, and how his mom didn't want him to get onto it, but she saw how physically hurt him, and so she's wanting to help him deal with his disability, prevent his disability from preventing him from living a fulfilling life. He's not going to have a normal life, and that's clear, but he can have a fulfilled life. And I love the fact that even though the senior prank is really messed up, and like there's a ton of things that I don't like about the senior prank, not the prank itself, but the fact that Spencer really put himself in kind of like a suspension danger to be able to save Hope, who hasn't really even gone up to like connect with him or like understand him. Like, you've been friends for like how many years, and yet you like leave him out of it? Like, it's so frustrating, and I hate that aspect of Hope. Again, like, Hope is a mess. Like, I understand the whole point of Hope, especially during her teenage period, is like she's a mess and she doesn't really understand her identity, especially after the tragedy and yada yada. But I really do not like Hope in the second part of the book. I kind of have a problem with Hope in the first part of the book, but at least I got her better in the first part of the book than the second part of the book. Just because, like, you're friends with Spencer for such a long period of time and you have such a negative thought process of him afterwards, like, that doesn't make sense. But the important thing about the first senior prank is that Spencer steals his brother's truck. And before that, like, he's gotten his driver's permit. Like, he can drive. Like, sure, he has Tourette's, but he can drive. He can control that aspect of it. It's hard that he's learned how to, like, manage it, which makes sense. There are people with Tourette's syndrome that can manage it in certain situations, like eating food or something like that. I don't have the condition, and I don't study kind of those conditions, but that's what I've heard. So the fact of the matter that he steals the truck, and his dad is super mad. How you can try? It's like the best part because it also goes connecting to the fact that he wants to like help out in the camping store that his dad owns, but because like his dad is like, we're gonna scare the customers, and he's like, I'm gonna, just because I scare them doesn't mean I can't do a job. Like I can do the job perfectly well. Like, and if people hate talk bad about me, like you could defend me. I could defend myself. I can take a break. Like there's so many things that you could accommodate for myself that I could work here. And it's really fascinating and I absolutely adore it. But the fact of the matter that he steals the truck and his dad gets really impressed and lets him like do errands and stuff like that. Like, my God, the excitement he feels like right up. I felt that in my bones. And I love that aspect of the book. I love those little aspects of the book. I love the fact that while Tourette's are part of his life, they're not his whole life. Like the fact that he likes bugs. He's a super dork of bugs, and he knows all these bug facts, and they try to gross each other. Hope and Spencer, in the first part of the book, really tried to freak each other out with what they know about bugs, and the fact that he wants to explore the world, just like Hope and her sister does. It's really adorable and sweet, and so yeah, I highly recommend it. It's one of the few. I'm not gonna say like it was written by someone who isn't disabled. I can't find any information about it, but it's one of the few books about someone with a disability that felt like it could have been written by someone who has a disability. And so yeah, highly recommend it. Although I will say that again, I had an issue with Hope at the second part of the book. The first part of the book, great, love her, but Hope in the second part of the book, kind of problematic for me. Just because, like, I didn't, again, it's me being neurodivergent and stuff. I didn't get why she treated Spencer that way. And Spencer kind of didn't get it either, which I'm like, yeah, is it us? Or is it her? I think it's like a combination of us not getting what's going on. And we kind of would be the person that's like, yeah, what's going on? And someone's like, I just don't want to talk about it. It's like, okay, why aren't you asking me? I'm like, you told me not to talk about it. I don't know what do you want me to ask? So yeah, so it got down a little bit. So it's a 4.25 out of 5 on the story itself. A 5 out of 5 out of the audiobook. The audiobook's spectacular. Highly recommended reading it if you really want to get a disabled book about someone with disabilities where it's not a tragedy and it's just a normal teenage love story. It's just the main character has one little more thing he has to deal with, which is his disability. And it talks about how he manages to live a normal life with said disability. It's like, hey, he doesn't have to overcome his disability. He just has to. It talks about how he gets the accommodations to live around his disability. I'm like, yay! So yeah, highly recommended. And the next book I'm going to talk, hopefully, where you're going to see me posting daily now, hopefully, and I'm saying hopefully, but I don't know. I'm a terrible person at keeping promises. Is The Reaper and the Waiting, which is a great book. Comic. It's a webcomic from Webtoons. I'm going to do a Webtoon review, which is something I don't want to talk about, even though I'm reading like a ton of webcomics. I haven't finished a ton of them, so I don't talk about them until I finish them. Although I should talk about Marry My Husband. Yeah, I'll leave that for you guys. If you want me to do a review on Marry My Husband, please leave it in the comments. I might think of doing it, because I have so many thoughts on Marry My Husband and how much I don't like the K-drama. Like, the K-drama is fine, but like it misses a lot of the real impact that Marry My Husband, the webcomic had, that went way over the heads of the K-drama. Okay, see you guys later.